Coming up on this episode of Booked on Rock, a first-hand account of what it's like to chase your rock and roll dreams. New Jersey rocker Wayne Olivieri shares the ups, the downs, and the hard lessons learned.
We're totally booked.
Rock and roll!
Well, I think I'll leave you to your reading.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Rock and roller!
We are totally booked.
Welcome back to Booked on Rock. I'm Eric Senich. My guest is Wayne Olivieri. He is the author of The Undiscovered Showman, a true story of being almost famous. Welcome to the podcast, Wayne.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Before we get into all these great stories in the book, tell us where you're from and when you started playing in bands and making music.
I'm from a town called Plainfield, New Jersey. It's smack dab in the center of the state, about an hour from the beach, about a half hour from New York. Born here. And I guess I started, believe it or not, it's in the book. I can actually remember, I must have been 6 maybe, when the Beatles came on Ed Sullivan. And my older brother and I, Gary's like 6 years older than me. So he must have been like, had to be like 12 or 11 or something. I remember running to the closet and grabbing a broom and just jumping up and down. I don't know what it was, but it was bizarre because it just kind of took over me. I was just mesmerized by it. Like I could still remember it. And from that moment on, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a Beatle. And from there, it was weird because I started going to church in a St. Mary's boys choir. In 4th grade, I started singing and I loved it. It was just like, to me, it was like magical. Like I felt like a star. I was in the choir loft. You know, we got these robes on, and every 11 o'clock mass, we'd walk down. And I'm a Catholic, so we used to get communion. And everybody used to look at us, and I used to dig it. You know, and the choir master was one of these cats who were real super. Like he was a Vienna Choir Boys kind of guy. You know, he was like strict, super strict, and he taught us how to sing. And he taught, we actually sang, I sang with the Vienna Choir Boys. So it was a very professional guy, and that's how I learned. And then I think I started my first band in 7th grade and went on from there and never stopped.
Well, this book is not only entertaining to read in terms of seeing what life is like for a musician pursuing their dream, but there are words of advice and wisdom throughout. And you write, quote, "It's always better to have a definite leader calling the shots or chaos ensues." And this comes up while you're writing about the band Coffee. Tell us about the band Coffee.
Well, Coffee was kind of a band from previous bands. Mark Baxter was in it, the drummer and the guitar player and the bass player and the keyboard player. And these guys were older than us. Me and Mark were younger. I think, God, we must have been right out of high school almost, you know, so somewhere around 17 or 18 years old. Coffee was an interesting band because the club scene in New Jersey was like no other. It was almost like a Liverpool at that time. The drinking age was 18 in the state of New Jersey from 1973 till 82. And there was a club on every corner. I mean, there was bands like you wouldn't believe it. And it's not like it is today where you move a couple of tables and you set up the band. It was full-fledged rock shows. I mean, 24-foot trucks full of equipment. We had managers. We were playing 6 nights a week, but chaos ensued in general, just not even Coffee, but in Rock Kids and any other band I was in. It's like, if you didn't have a leader, it was hard to really get anything accomplished if you started butting heads. And that's what happened. We started butting heads a real lot. And Artie DiLeonardo, my bass player, and Tico, he was a keyboard player. They bumped heads real bad. And eventually fist fights, like a physical fight broke out, and then the band broke up. But yeah, I think in every band that I've been in, you really have to have some sort of either a leader or co-leader, where you have a majority rule or you have someone that's calling the shots. Like even in the New Bardos, which is the band I'm in now, myself and Gar, who's throughout the book, my partner, we kind of write all the songs, and there's a certain, everybody has their niche, and that's what we do. And I think it's good advice. It's very hard with anything, any kind of team. It's very hard to run something without anybody being so-called leader, even in the military, you know.
Sure. Well, that's the importance of a manager too, right?
Management, I think, is when I look back on things, I think that was my biggest mistake, is not getting into management earlier on. I think that was one of the big, if I had to do it over again, I would seek management sooner. But I had a bit of an ego back then. And I was running things, and
it's rock and roll.
What I was doing.
You gotta have an ego to be in rock and roll.
You do.
Yeah. You also say that your approach must be all or nothing if you have any chance of making it. And don't settle for the easy out like a good job offer. You gave up a great corporate job for a life in showbiz. Tell us about that.
Yeah, right out of high school, basically, Art DiLeonardo, the bass player in Coffee, actually, and Circus, he was a mechanical engineer. He worked for a company called Eastco Corporation, and he told me I was looking for a job. I just got out of high school. I think it was September, and he's like, "Wayne," he goes, "they're looking for a layout draftsman." I go, "What's that?" I go, "I failed mechanical drawing twice in high school, not once, but twice." He goes, "Don't worry about it. Just they're so hard up for somebody. All you gotta do is fill out the application real neat, and I guarantee you they'll hire you and I'll help you." So I'm like, "All right." So I fill out the application real slow and neat. And sure enough, they hired me as a mechanical draftsman, like where you have a big thing and you got blueprints and you got to draw like squares and pictures of these metal gratings for like catwalks on submarines and stuff. And Artie would come down and he would like actually do my work for me and taught me how to do it. Now, the funny thing was my mother was so proud of me. My son's got a corporate job. This is great. And it's in the book. Gar came up to me and he said, "Listen, I want to start a full original band full time. Everybody's going to quit their jobs. We're going to go on unemployment. We're going to just become a real rock band." And I was like, "I'm in." So long story short, I got myself fired. I went on unemployment. Right now, my mother had no idea, either did my father. And I was living at home at the time. And I used to get dressed in my shirt and tie. And every morning, and I would walk out the door. My mother used to think I was going to work. And what I used to do is get in my car and go to rehearsal. And we just, that happened like 3 months before she finally found out.
You didn't want to break her heart.
No, she was devastated.
How did you get fired?
It took
what
a
did you
long
do?
time.
Yeah, you said it did take a while. It's like you're thinking, man, you're not going to fire me after doing that.
I was effing up as much work as I could possibly F up. And I got pulled into like my supervisor's office. His name was Ray. And he used to go, "Wayne, you okay? Is everything wrong?" Like they liked me, I guess, a lot. So it was like, it took them, no kidding. I think I started trying to get fired in like September. I didn't get fired till like December. So it took a long time.
You were
Finally, they
determined.
just said, "Well, we're going to have to let you go, Wayne. We're really sorry." But I'm like, "Yeah, I understand. It's not you, it's me."
Yeah, the breakup line.
Yes, not you, it's me. That
Yeah.
was it. And then we went full time, and it's all in the book. It was quite a fun ride. We rented this little garage thing. This piano guy, he was a piano teacher, and he had a little like almost like a garage. It wasn't a garage. It was almost like a shack in the back of his yard, and we rented that out. And it was funny because whenever he came to collect the rent, he'd walk in and all the guys in the band, some of us would have it, some of us wouldn't, our share. So I remember me and Gar used to go, "I got my share." And he used to like put his head on his thing. "Oh, guys, come on, just get it all together and give me one." So we're each like giving him. He was a good guy, Ray. And we were there for a good 6 months. We wrote a lot of songs there. And that's where we got tight as an all original rock band back in the 1975.
Yeah, this is
like that.
Rock Kids.
That's Rock Kids.
Yeah, Rock Kids. So yeah, this is where things really start to get interesting. Talk about your meeting with Epic Records, dealing with rejection. That's a reality in the business, and you experienced it here.
I fell off a lot of horses. Let's put it to you that way. You got to rub yourself off and get back on the horse. I mean, back then, which is a totally different game than it is today, you had to get a record deal. There was, for people that don't know out there, way back, it was record companies that ran it. You did not have independent artists, very little. It was extremely rare. So you had to get a deal, what they call a record deal, from a record company. So we put together a demo tape. We were shopping it around, and luckily we lived near New York. And back in those days, I was calling up. And I got an actual couple of appointments where you could actually walk in, and we're thinking on the way to New York in the car with Gar, and we're thinking, this is it. We got our big break. We're going to Epic Records. They're going to listen to this tape. They're going to love us. We're going to get a record deal. We were like all hyped up. I was thinking walking into this giant office, I was fantasizing like crazy. This guy's probably got an office in the corner overlooking Manhattan. He's going to turn on the tape. He's going to have champagne. We're going to get a
Big
deal. Big cigar. Yeah, you guys are great. So we walk into Epic Records and we go through these double doors, and we're sitting in the reception area. And then the girl, whoever it was, goes, "Come on in, Diane, I'll see you." And we start going through this hallway, some real skinny hallway, with boxes all over the place. And I'm like, "What the heck's this?" And I walk in, it's this little tiny office about the size of a closet, with like a little desk and a tape recorder and no windows. And it was like this lady walks in, she sits down, and she puts the tape in the back then, the cassette. Remember the cassette tapes? I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember those little tiny things. turns her back to us like this, and she's listening to it, and then listens to like maybe 5 seconds, 20 seconds of the first song, and she fast forwards it to the next song, and then the next song, and the next song. And she turns around, pulls the tape out. She goes, I don't hear a hit. I don't hear anything. And I was just like, what just happened? like, wait a minute, what? I couldn't believe it. It was like,
that quick.
It just like, boom, the bubbles pop and you're done, you know? And of course, you know, you're walking out of the place and we were just effing her up and down. Like, what does she know? You know, our egos are back. I mean, look, you have to have an ego, like you said. But back then when you're young like that and you're arrogant and just like, you know, what do you know? And it happened over and over and over again, a lot. It's like getting punched. It's like being in a fight and you're getting punched and you're getting punched and you're getting punched and you got to counter. Most people don't. I mean, once they get hit, they go down and they don't get back up. And I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm sure it's a lot. Percentage of people that try to get there and drop out at the first sign of blood. You know what I mean? Whereas you got to get a bloody nose. My buddy Dave used to say to me, when you're getting to a fight, there's one thing to remember. It's going to hurt, you know, and you just got to keep that in the back of your mind. If you're going in, you're going to get hit and it's going to hurt.
Yeah, but you keep getting back up and you end up developing a solid following. You opened for Roger McGuinn. You got a CBGB shirt on right now for this interview. You played CBGBs and great stories. This is where we get some great stories about your time at CBGBs. You saw some yet to be famous bands, Talking Heads, Blondie, and the Ramones. You also opened for Aerosmith, but you say they really weren't on their game that night. When was this?
I don't know the year. It must have been in the early 80s, probably.
Oh yeah. They were
heavily into drugs.
In rough shape. Yeah.
It was the drugs, really. Now, that story about Aerosmith was my brother, Gary. He was their light guy. So he's been in the business as long as I have. And he's been touring with Aerosmith and Greggy Hines and Ian Hunter. So he's been around, but he was on tour with them and they were coming to New Jersey. And the manager asked him if he knew any bands. And he said, yeah, my brother's got a band. And that's how we got the gig. It was pretty cool. It was in a big place. It was called the Fountain Casino. It held about 3,000 people. Place was totally sold out. It was packed. We had a great set. We went on and I was standing on the side of the stage watching these guys. And at the time, honestly, they were pretty bad. I mean, they were playing out of tune. He was singing off key and you could just tell that they weren't on, you know. And I was looking at this is Aerosmith. I was thinking to myself, I'm better than him, you know. I'm going to make it.
Booked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
I gotta go now, but don't you leave town, huh?
At CBGB is where the Ramones played, and you're like, who are these guys? And Blondie also. Debbie Harry was cool with you guys, right?
Debbie is very cool. The story at CBGB's was when the rock hits first started, we needed some gigs, and New York was happening. Like, that was the only place that was taking original music. New Jersey had a big club scene, but it was all copy. There was no original music in New Jersey. Very, very, almost nowhere. So I went into Manhattan, and I remember going during the day to a place called CBGB's. I can't remember why. I think I might have saw it in the Village Voice, possibly. You know, I was looking in the Village Voice at the time. They used to have all the clubs listed. And I went in, and I met this guy with a beard. Really, he looked like a bum. His name was Hilly Crystal. He was the owner. And he's like, yeah, well, I have audition night on Monday. If you guys want to come on Monday. So I went back and said, we got an audition. So we all packed our stuff in the little van we had, a little truck van. We went to CBGB's. We started putting our equipment up and we're like, what time are we going on? He goes, oh, you're going to go on like 4th, you know. That night, everybody had an audition. Nobody had a record deal. I believe it was us, the Ramones, the Talking Heads, and Blondie. And it was Shirts too, a band called Shirts. And it was funny because these bands were going on. You know what? I might be wrong with that. I don't think the Ramones were. I think it was Talking Heads. The Ramones are the following week or the next Thursday. It wasn't a Ramones. It was the Talking Heads, Blondie, and the Shirts and us. But the Talking Heads went on, and we were looking at them laughing. They couldn't play their instruments. It's the weirdest dude I've ever seen playing. The bass player was playing like one note things.
Goofy looking guys. Who the hell are these guys?
It was, and the music was weird. But there was all these people from New York. Like the punk scene was happening there. We had no idea what the punk scene was. It was just being born.
Your sound was more like
Rolling Stones,
Zeppelin.
Zeppelin, yeah, like Queen versus Zeppelin,
Right.
real heavy rock and roll kind of thing. Now it was funny because we got over with the crowds. We did well with their crowds, and then Blondie went on. She was a little different, a little more straighter than the Talking Heads. And she came off stage, I remember, and we had a drink at the bar, and she was really nice to me, and she was complimenting us, and I was complimenting her. And then the following, we got another gig, and it snowballed. And then the week we played with the Ramones, that was bizarre because all these punk rockers came in, and we had no idea what a punk rocker was. And it was like, what's going on? These people are coming with the shaved heads and the black outfits and the purple, this and that. And but I mean, I'm talking 1975. This is when it happened. And they went on like 1, 2, 3, 4, and they started playing. And it was just like this wall of freaking, must have been turned up to 20. I was like, whoa. And it wasn't that good at that time. It was a little off key, but there was something about them that was just different and bizarre. It was just to look at, and the songs were 2 minutes long. It went like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it was the next song. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, and it was like, Joey was up there going like this, and they acted real tough and everything. And I remember it's in the book. Gar, we were kind of laughing at him, yet we were awestruck because we didn't know what we were looking at. And I remember Gar said to me, "You think they're tough? Watch this." And we were standing at the bar. I'll never forget this. And Joey Ramone was walking. Now Joey's real tall. He's like 6'3" or something. He's real lanky. He looks like Howard Stern, with long hair.
That was the thing. They used to joke about that. They both looked like they were brothers.
Yep. So Gar goes, "Watch this," and Joey starts walking. He was kind of a dick move on Gar's part, but like I said, back then we were just little tough kind of guys, Jersey guys. How you doing? So Gar puts his arm on the pole, so Joey couldn't go by him, and Joey just stopped and looked down and just like turned around and went around him. And he goes, "See, he's not so tough."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, it's all a facade, Maybe not with all of them, but with Joey it was.
Joey was a really quiet, reserved guy. He was a character. The whole band, they were all characters, man.
Looking back, it was like being in a dream. Because that whole scene, the
Right.
CBGB scene was just, it's hard to explain. It was real bizarre. I mean, the place was always packed, and we were always going on like 4:00 in the morning. One time we went on, there was like one person left in the room.
Oh,
but
man, 4 in the morning.
Oh, yeah. We went on like 3:45 or something. And there was like 2 people left our first Thursday night, I think it was. But Hilly Crystal was a real cool guy because he would stay there till the very end, and he would listen. He's a music guy, and he would listen to us. He's like, "Wayne," he goes, "you guys are good. He goes, I want you back again." And then he even hooked us up with Max's Kansas City guy. And so he hooked us up with a lot of clubs in Manhattan that we ended up playing with.
Those are the big clubs. Max's. Those were those are Springsteen played at Max's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There was a movie on CBGB on.
There was.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
If you look at the end of the movie, they showed the wall with all the band's stickers on it. You'll see Rock Kids on there.
Seriously? Oh man, that's cool.
Yeah. If you look at the movie. Yeah, we were regulars. So there was an article in Variety magazine about the new Bowery Boomers, they called it, and the Ramones, the Talking Heads, the Shirts, and Rock Kids. We were in there. But the bizarrest part about the whole trip was everybody got a record deal but us. We were the only band that never got signed out of all those bands.
That's the strange thing, and you write it in the book, talent doesn't equal fame. Being famous doesn't mean you're talented.
Right. If you're talented doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be famous. And if you're famous doesn't necessarily mean you're that talented.
It's like right place, right time. Just all these things have to happen.
It's the call of the universe. It really is. And the funniest part too is going to the second version of Rock Kids where we started playing copy songs 2 years later, like around 1979, 1980. We were doing the club scene like 6 nights a week. We had a big audience. We
had a big following. Yeah.
Big following, huge. We were one of the bigger bands in the tri-state area, but we would be on stage and guess what songs we'd be doing? 24 hours to go. I want to be sedated.
Yeah.
And I'd be going, I can't believe I'm singing this.
Oh, that's hilarious.
God.
You mentioned you played in New Jersey and Connecticut. I'm in Connecticut. Where did you play in Connecticut? What were the clubs?
We played a couple clubs. We played a place called the Red House. Was in Waterbury, Connecticut.
Oh, yes.
We played a place called the Brave Bull Cafe in Hartford. That was a huge room. It had a couple thousand people there. Rochester, we were real big in Rochester. Buffalo, we played some gigs in Buffalo, and then we played the East Coast. We went down, well, played the East Coast, but we went down to Florida a bunch of times for spring break. There was a guy by the name of Art Stock. He was a club owner. He owned clubs all around down in Florida, New Jersey, big clubs. I mean, his clubs were called the Playpen, and they held a couple thousand people, and he would have a disco on one side and a rock room on another. Our agent, Sammy Boyd, was hooked up with him. So we did a lot of his clubs. He did down in Wildwood, New Jersey. He had a huge club. He had a huge two clubs in Fort Lauderdale. And let me tell you, going to Fort Lauderdale in spring break in 1981, 82, with no holds barred.
Oh,
Like, it was crazy. I mean, we played 6 nights a week, 4 sets a night, and we were just party till the sun come up and do it again.
girls.
For like 6 weeks in a row. Girls.
Sex, drugs,
Yeah.
and rock and roll.
Well, thank God you couldn't die from anything back then. Yet,
Yeah.
So, those were crazy days.
As far as, are you able to make a living off of, at this point now, when you're playing 4 to 7 nights a week, are you able to make a decent living?
Made a good living. Back in those days, we were pulling in, I guess I want to say, sometimes you got $1,500 a night, sometimes you got $2,500 a night. We had to pay everybody, but when it all smoke cleared, you're paying 6 nights a week. You're making $600 to $1,000 a week back then.
And then you
Yeah.
have a shot with Warner Brothers, but that falls through due to some
Yeah.
betrayal within the band.
Yeah, that was
What happened?
That was pretty. I got us what they call a spec deal at a place called the House of Music in West Orange. It was a big studio at the time. They did Kool and the Gang. They did Diodato, Nectar. Meatloaf was mixed there. Bat Out of Hell.
Yeah, there's a story in
anyway.
the book about that, right? He's playing the pinball machine.
Yeah, I mean, I met Meat. I didn't know who he was at the
Yeah.
time. That was pretty funny. So now Stefan Galfus was my producer. He used to work for Warner Brothers, and Jim Bonifant was my engineer. And we did a demo with Rock Kids, and I think we did like an 8-song demo there. They shopped it to Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers liked the demo, and they wanted to give us what they call a first right to refusal, where they pay for the rest of the demo to do like an album's worth of material. And then when it's done, they get the first right of the songs to take you. And then if they don't
Okay.
want it, they can reject you, and then you move forward like that. But what happened was the 2 guitar players at the time didn't like the drummer in the band. All right, Jeff. They thought he wasn't good enough. They thought he could be replaced, it'd be better. So they had a guy that they were trying to get in the band from a long time. And they went behind my back and talked about the drummer. And then within the talk of the drummer, the one guitar player said, and I think we have some better songs than what we got with Wayne. So I get a call from Stefan, and he goes, the deal's off with Warner Bros. I go, why? He goes, your band's unstable. They don't want to put the money in. And then he told me what happened. And it was just like, you want to just kill somebody?
You saw red. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah. More than red. It was devastating, but at the time I needed those guys in the band. They were really, really talented players, and they were telling me, oh no, it wasn't that. We just thought maybe we had a couple better songs. I wasn't trying to outdo you. They were making excuses back for it, but I knew right then and there that the that was over. I kind of knew that it was, the sign was on the wall, But
Yeah.
that was just one of the devastating things that happened.
Booked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
Look, we're gonna take a pause for the cause.
You get your song She's a Cartoon played on NEW in New York. That's a big deal. DJ Jim Carrey played it. Huge exposure. Deborah Harry happened to be in the studio and mentioned that she knew you guys. So this is around 80, 81.
You did read the book.
I read the book. Yeah, this is
Okay,
around,
good.
I loved it. This is around 80 or 81. But eventually Rock Kids come to an end. When was that? Why did you decide to end the band?
Oh, things like that happened.
Just ran its
That happened,
course.
so we didn't, it kind of went its course, and then those guys quit, and I tried to regroup. And remember, it was our living at the time too, so we weren't working, so working jobs. That was our job. So when people dropped out, you just wanted to replace them and keep working, because we had an agency that booked us, and we were booked like 6 nights a week, 5 to 6 nights a week. So I had to keep the band going just to make money on top of that, just to survive. So we replaced a lot of people. And as you replaced people, you kind of lose a little this here, a little that there.
Right.
Sometimes you luck out and you bring somebody in that's better than the guy that was there before him. But the band that was really the tightest band was the one that with Todd and Bruce, the guys who went behind my back. That band was super hot, super great. So from that point on, it kind of went a little downhill like this. And then eventually the fire was gone for me. The fire was gone. And then the gigs weren't coming in like they should be. We went down to like 3 nights a week and, try to survive on 3 nights a week versus 6 nights a week. And then it just kind of fizzled out. There was no specific incident that stopped the band. It just kind of slowly died. A sad death.
Then you get some exposure on Howard Stern. How did that come about? This is 1986. Talk about that.
Oh, the funny part was I moved from my parents' house to Asbury Park in 1981, I think it was. In the summer of 81. It was me and my girlfriend at the time. We went to the Asbury Hotel. It was this real dumpy hotel, no air conditioning. It was a one room, a walk up, and she was bartending at the Stone Pony. Rockets was just ending. We were still playing some gigs and I was listening to Howard Stern, and Howard Stern was on NBC on New York radio, and he was moving to K-Rock, which is an FM station, and they were having a contest, a song parody contest, because one of his shticks was parodies, song parodies. So I remember the bass player at the time. Oh, that's right. Oliver's Twist was just starting.
Yeah, that's the new band, Oliver's Twist.
Yeah. Yep. And that was Brian Hadley from the last sequence of Rock Kids was the guitar player. And Brian came over and he talked me into saying, let's just do all originals. So I was like, I'm into that. So we started writing songs. But the Howard Stern thing was I went in the studio and I got the song, the Gilligan's Island theme song. And I had it on tape, and a friend of mine was in the studio. He had a studio down there, and he took the words out. They had the machine that did that. And then we added a guitar and we added a bass, and I changed the words to sit right here and you'll hear a tale. Try a win a trip. It started back a year ago when Howard ran the ship. His Nate was robbing quivers, and Fred Norris made damn sure that every skit they did on air would help their ratings soar. Yes, help their ratings soar. The ratings started going up, and NBC was lost. They didn't get the humor of Howard's show, and soon they'll feel the loss. Yes, soon they'll feel the loss. Then goes, Howard signed a better deal on the K-Rock dial, and it went on and on and on. Get a phone call out of like 5,000 entries. I get a phone call early in the morning.
Wait a minute. Was it from Baba Booey?
It was from Howard.
Wow, Howard called you.
Okay. On the air. He called me on the air. I didn't know he was on.
Man.
He calls me on the air and the phone rings. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning when he was on real early in the morning back then, drive time. And he goes, hello, he's trying to make himself sound like a girl or something. He goes, this is the phone company. There's a problem with your phone. I go, what? I was sleeping. I was like, what? He goes, you take the phone and like bang it over your head a few times. Maybe that'll work. And it was something stupid like that. And I was like,
yeah, he had that different style of humor back then.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a real kind of slapstick.
Right.
A verbal slapstick, verbally slapsticking. Yeah. So then he's like, he goes, you're going to London, you idiot. I was like, really? We won the freaking contest. That's crazy. So we went to London for a whole week with the Howard Stern show.
Pictures in the book?
Oh, yeah.
Of that?
The whole things are in the book. Yeah. It was fun. It was really great.
And you said something that it's very, I've heard this before about Howard, different guy off the air than on the air.
Yeah, he's very introverted off the air. And when he gets in front of the mic, it turns into Howard Stern. But off the air, he's very shy. I guess you could say shy. And introverted, quiet, soft-spoken, Amazing. But we did. There was one night, I think it's in the book too, where I was in the audience I was with the show for 5 days, and I was sitting in the audience. I think there was 10 winners. So it was like 20 of us or something. So they used to put us in front of them. And one of the guests was Dee Schneider from Twisted Sister. This is in the book too. And he comes out because we used to open up for Dee all the time. Me and Dee know each other. And he goes, is that Wayne from the Rock Kids? And Howard's like, you know that guy? He goes, get up here. And he made me come up. And it was great because I got air, you got on the air. That was the trick to get on air, And then that night we went out. It was me and Dee Schneider, Howard, and a couple other winners. They were musicians. And Fred Norris, he played guitar. Fred was a good guitar player.
Yeah.
People didn't know that.
He's from Connecticut.
Really, he is.
I think Newington, somewhere in Connecticut.
Yeah, I remember he was from Connecticut.
Yeah,
but
I had a friend from my old radio days who went to Western At the time, it was called Western Connecticut State College. It's now a university, but he was at the radio station there, and so was Fred. Fred was the first guy among the college radio station guys that had an actual gig, and he was working in Hartford for WCCC. He was doing overnights, weekends, and he came in on a Monday morning, and they're like, "Hey, Fred, how'd it go this weekend?" He's like, "Yeah, it's good. They got some new morning show guy there." He's like, total fucking goof. Real tall dude with, goofy. And it was Howard.
Howard.
He said, he was like, "Guy's so annoying."
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
He's still with him to this day, isn't he?
Still with him to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
crazy.
I'm sorry, I had to sneak that story in.
No, that's cool.
Where were we? So, yeah, you went to London.
Fred's a good guy. So me and Howard and Dee, after the show,
yep.
Howard goes, "Listen, we're going," because they used to take you out to dinner afterwards. So we'd all like go to a pub or something. And we were going to a place that had a stage and it had equipment, and they rigged it up, or Fred did, so we could go on stage and do a couple songs. So it was me, Fred, I forget the kid's name. He was playing the bass, and there was a drummer, and Dee Schneider and Howard. We were all on stage, and we were doing Bully Bully or something like that, one of those songs. And we're on stage having a good time, and all of a sudden a beer bottle comes flying from the back of the room and almost hits Dee. It turns out there was a band called ZZ Sputnik. They were a punk band, and they were swearing at us and telling us to go F ourselves and go back to America and all this crap. So literally a ballroom fight breaks out. Dee Schneider jumps off the stage and grabs one of the kids and punches him in the face. All of a sudden, another beer ball sign, and me and Howard, believe it or not, I don't know how it happened, but we ended up hiding behind one of the amplifiers like this. Like, what's going on? The next day, Howard's going, "Me and Wayne were pussies who were sitting Dee's beating the shit out of these guys." Am I allowed to say this? Sorry. And
yeah,
it was hilarious. It was looking back, it was a lot of fun, but it was scary, but that's what happened.
It's a wild experience, man. You got stories to tell, and many of them, and they're in this book.
I would tell these stories. People say, "You got to write a book. You got to write a book." So I'm like, it took me a while, but
it took a long time. Yeah.
It did, on and off. It's not easy.
The Booked on Rock podcast will be back after this.
We will now pause for station identification. This is NUTS.
Wayne Olivieri is our guest. The book is titled The Undiscovered Showman, a true story of being almost famous. Yeah, it did take you a long time. You talked about you started it, stopped for a good 4 or 5 years or even more.
Yeah.
You started in like the early 2000s.
2004, I think I started it.
Right.
And then I kind of on and off. I don't know what happened, life in general, just you put it aside and then you get back to it and you put it aside and get back to it. My friend George said to me one time, he said, "Wayne, you could write a book. If you can write 1 page a day, you can get a book done in 6 months, or even less." I mean, it depends how many pages you want to write about.
Yeah.
And so I tried that. It's like, I went down, I'll never forget the first page. I'm double spacing, is it a page yet?
Yeah. It's like working out every day. Yeah, I could do that.
Exactly what it's like. It's
After a week.
It's like getting to the gym, like,
eat carrots every day.
Man.
Sure.
Yeah.
I could do that.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. But you got it done, man. In chapter 8, titled My Friend Jon, you have been friends with Jon Bon Jovi so far back that you were there alongside his career rise. Tell us when you first met him, what your relationship has been with him over the years. His first gig opening for your band?
Yeah. The first official gig for Bon Jovi was opening for my band, the Rock Kids. That was the Bon Jovi lineup with Tico, with Alex, with Richie and John and Dave. Those guys. But I met John. My girlfriend at the time was bartending at a place called the Fast Lane. And the Fast Lane, Asbury Park, back in 1981, 82. Well, actually before that, before I got there. But it was the hub in New Jersey. It was the music hub. It was like, it was a dumpy town. It wasn't a great town, but there was the Stone Pony. There was the Fast Lane. There was a couple different clubs, like 3 or 4 different clubs. I remember the drinking age was still 18 at the time. It was just turning back to 21 when I met John. Anyway, she worked as a bartender at this place called the Fast Lane every Sunday. And there was a band playing called Jon Bon Jovi and the Wild Ones every Sunday. So I would go about 10 o'clock or 10:30, and I would get there and I would sit at her bar and I would wait for her to get done and we would go home. That was the plan. But at that time, it was the summer of 80, might have been 82. Bruce Springsteen used to show up at the Stone Pony every single Sunday and jam with this band called Cats on a Smooth Surface. So I was at the Fast Lane, which is 4 blocks from the Stone Pony. Jon Bon Jovi and the Wild Ones are playing. I had no idea who he was. The first time I went there, when he came off for a break, he came over to me and he goes, "Oh man, I saw you open for Aerosmith. You guys are great." And he was like basically kissing up to me like back then, because he was like, "Oh my God, Wayne from the Rockets." It's like, John's 6 years younger than me. So, he was younger and he was looking up to us and he knew who I was and we had a reputation at the time and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, the story is Bruce Springsteen would show at the Pony every single Sunday. And as soon as he did, it was like somebody yelled fire and the whole place would just empty out and everybody would run down to the Stone Pony.
Sure.
And there would be John's band playing to absolutely nobody but the bartender and the manager. And then the manager would just eventually say, "Just call it a night." So we would always, every Sunday, almost like clockwork, we would get done around 11:30, and Bruce would be on stage at the Pony maybe at midnight, and we'd all walk down to the Stone Pony and watch Bruce Springsteen every Sunday together.
Wow.
And that's how me and John, we became fast friends. There's something about him though. Looking back now, there was something about him that I don't know what made me connect with him or what made him connect with me, but we made fast friends back then. And from that moment on, he was working at his cousin's recording studio and got a record deal. And he would call me up, "Hey, Wayne, I got a record deal. What do I do?" He was always asking me questions on what to do and how to do this and what should I do. And I would tell him for the best of my knowledge, and it got to the point where they went out on the first tour and I remember their equipment got stolen. He called me up. He's like, "Well, what should I do? I need some help." So I hooked him up with this guy, Lawyer Music, and they got him all equipment. And then when he needed a rehearsal studio in Asbury Park, he wanted to move to Asbury. So I got him an apartment down in Bradley Beach near me. And I was like his right-hand man almost.
Yeah.
Like it kind of I don't know whether I was mentoring him at the time and then it kind of got reversed as he got up the ladder, as he got to be famous. It kind of got totally flipped 180. At first I was mentoring him, and then by the end of the relationship, it was just like, or parts of that, I was like, he was mentoring me sort of, because he was on the jet and I was going with him.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that story about the jet, but that demo you're referring to, that's the one where he has Runaway is on that one, and Runaway doesn't have all Richie or all those guys. I think they were
Jack Ponte.
musicians.
Jack Ponte was one of the guys. He passed away recently. He was a guitar player. I believe John was on that. And I don't know who else was on it, but you're right. It wasn't that band, but they put that mix of that song on that album, on the first album, and they released it as a single.
And then they had the first album, Fahrenheit.
And then the third one was the third one. Slippery. That was the big one. Yeah. That was the one that put him like into the galaxy.
Oh yeah. And you rode in Bon Jovi's jet. And there's a story where you see him walking back behind a curtain.
Yeah.
What do you see there?
Yeah. Well, he called me one night and he's like, "Hey man," he goes, "We're going to Boston. You want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got nothing to do." So, the limo pulls up. He had a limo at the time. He's spending his money. He was already real famous at the time. And we went to Alaire Airport and there it was, the Bon Jovi jet. So I was like, "Wow, this is pretty cool." So we went on the jet and we flew to Boston. They did the show, which was a whole nother story about how they used to have 3 different limousines because there was so many. They were like the Beatles. We landed, this is in the book also, we landed in an airport in Boston and there had to have been 300 to 500 kids with signs like screaming, just like the Beatles. I mean, it was like being with the Beatles. It was bizarre. It was like, this is what it's like, and half of me was loving it. And the other half of me was wishing it was me.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
it was kind of like you get torn apart from this way, that way. But I was there.
That was your dream.
But they would have fake limousines after the show because kids would get in their car and try to chase the limousines, and it would be dangerous because they'd be hanging outside trying to bang on the limo while they were driving and stuff. So we get back to the plane and it takes off, and I'm playing cards with Richie and Tico, and I was like, "Where's John?" He goes, "Oh, he's in the back." So now the plane was G5. So you could walk. It was tall enough we could walk, but it wasn't real wide and it wasn't real long. But there was a curtain and I pulled the curtain back and there's John sitting next to the road. I forget his name. He's the road manager. And there was no light. There was a stack of cash right in front. Like you could hardly see his face. It was up to here. And he looks over the cash. He goes, Another gig, another $80,000 in t-shirt sales, bro. He was a businessman from the jump. You know what I mean? Like
I always got that sense, that he within the
I mean,
business.
that's one thing that I wish I was more like him. I mean, he was an astute business. I don't know where he got it from, but he was a no nonsense business guy. Like
he
it's a
wasn't into
music
drugs
business.
a lot, right? He drank.
Not at all. Yep. Never touched a drug that I knew. And
Right.
I've
I mean,
with
he'd
him
have
for a
some
long time.
beers and he'd, of course he'd have a good time, but he wasn't, it again, didn't seem like the type of guy that would have gotten caught up in that life to where it would destroy his career.
He was too focused. He was too focused. He was a very extremely focused guy. And look, give credit where credit's due. He was very focused and got himself where he got, But I mean, look at Doc McGee had a lot to do with it too, the management, but he was smart enough to get management, and pick the management he wanted. And that's kind of where it was, There was a lot of twists and turns to his career that was interesting looking back, where I used to be very tight with those guys. I was in the inner circle for 15 years, something like that.
Long time. When was it when
Yeah.
you helped to get him to jam on stage with Bruce for the first time?
A moment in rock and roll history.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Because
was
this is, I think,
yeah.
when Bon Jovi's pretty famous already.
the three biggest groups in the world was Bon Jovi, Michael Jackson, and Bruce Springsteen. That was back when he was doing the Born in the USA tour. John's dream was to play with Bruce Springsteen. He was a Bruce Springsteen fan from when he was a little kid, younger all the way up. So I was sitting home and I got a phone call, and John knew I knew the owner of the Stone Pony because my girlfriend was a bartender there, and I was part of the Stone Pony baseball team. I was part of the whole inner circle of the Stone Pony also. And John calls me. He's like, "Hey man," he goes, "Cats on a Smooth Surface," once again, the same band that was playing when he was not famous. They were still there on a Sunday. All those years later, they were still there on a Sunday, and Bruce would still come and play with him. So he's like, "I heard Bruce is going to be there. Can you think you can hook me up and get me on stage with him?" I said, "All right, let me call." So I call up Butch, the owner of the Pony, and I told him what's going on. And he's like, "Yeah, sure. That'd be great for the club having both those guys here. That'd be great. Bring them into the side door, which is right next to the stage. I'll have Bambi was the guy's name. He was a bouncer. He goes, "I'll have him open the door for you." So John comes over with Dorothy and the Jeep. We hop in. We go over to Stone Pony. We park. We walk in, banging the door. They let us in. We're standing at the side of the stage. They're playing. Bruce is up there. The crowd's going crazy. And he ends the chord. Boom. Like that, he ends. And I go, "John, go up, go up." So I grab him. I kind of pushed his ass up. I went like this, get him on stage. He jumps on the stage. And Bruce goes, "Thank you. Good night." He goes like that. Turns around. Walks right by John. The rest of the band walks right by John. Didn't even notice he was there. And John's like a deer in the headlights. So what just happened? I go, "Get down, get down, get down." I pull him down. We followed Bruce to the back room. And I went into the office where Bruce and Butch were. And I said, "Jon Bon Jovi's outside." And Bruce knew who he was, but never met him, but knew of him. And I said, he's a real big fan. He wanted to maybe play a tune with you. You think you can go back up if I get Cats to go back up? And Bruce is like, I think Max Weinberg was there playing the drums, and I think Clarence is playing with him too. And I was in the office. John was outside the office, and Bruce goes, "Yeah, okay." And Butch, the owner, looked at his watch. He goes, "You got some time if you want to do it." So I said, "Let me ask the band." So I went in the back. I asked the band. I introduced John to Bruce. They walked back through the crowd. Crowd went absolutely insane. It was like, crazy, because they finally knew that John was there too, and they hopped on stage. And then one of the guys from Cats just went like this, and I went, "All right." So I hopped on stage too. So it was Bruce Springsteen, Jon Bon Jovi, and me, the three lead singers in the front. I don't even know what song we did. I can't even remember. I've been trying like hell. It might have been
Really?
Kansas. It might have been Sweet Home Chicago or Kansas City. One of those two, I think.
Is that where you played harmonica?
Yeah, I played not that night, but I did
Okay.
play a harmonica on that song. Yeah, how'd you know?
Because I remember there was something in the book about. I thought maybe
Harmonica?
that was the night that you were playing the harp.
No,
while they were.
that's another funny story.
Yeah, I know about
a lot of
about-
funny stories in the book.
about John's difficulty playing the harmonica.
Yeah, well, he put actually what he did was harmonica goes from low to high. Like if it's a low notes and it goes high notes over here. What he did was he was on stage with Aerosmith and he put it in backwards. So when he went to play the riff, it wasn't anywhere to be found.
Yeah.
And
Steven Tyler after the show goes, "So you're the guy who taught."
You're the guy who taught him how to play. I was like, "I'm out of here. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm gone." That's a great night too.
Where was that again? Was that?
That was at the Meadowlands. That was in front of about 20,000 people. Yeah. That was the Meadowlands. John calls me. He's like, I'm doing, Aerosmith wants me on for an encore. They're playing I'm Down by the Beatles. He goes, can you show me a riff on the harp? So I went over his house in the afternoon. We worked on that thing for like 2 hours. It's just a little tiny riff. It was, but he learned it. He's real good at learning stuff, and he learned it. But like I said, I guess he didn't realize that he put it in backwards. And when he went to do the riff where the hole was, where you're supposed to be a B, it was an A flat,
Yeah.
So when he started, he said, what? And I was listening. I'm like, oh man, this is not good. But they didn't, the crowd didn't care. They were going crazy anyway.
Yeah, I'll know.
But the Pony Night, there's a picture to this day. There's a picture on the wall of Stone Pony of me and John on stage that night.
That's
and
awesome.
Bruce is cut out of the picture, believe it or not, he's on the side. So that was my moment with rock and roll history,
Sure.
It's cool.
Booked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
The future is now!
And you played football with Jon Bon Jovi and Sebastian Bach of Skid Row.
Oh, yeah.
Things got heated. I love these stories.
Well, the thing is, I was at dinner one night, and me and Dorothea and John were eating dinner. I did that a lot. I went over there a lot and just had dinner and stuff. And John's friend, Dave Sabo, they call him Snake Man. He was the Snake, Dave Snake. He was
still the guitarist of Skid Row.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
So Skid Row, at the time, Skid Row was just in their mother's garage. I mean, they were not playing out anywhere. They were literally a garage band. And John wanted to take them on a world tour because they were really good friends from high school. He wanted to do them a solid, right? So they needed a singer. So we're eating dinner, and I'm going like, hello, I'm right here. He goes, nah, Wayne, it's not your band. You're more like a Mick Jagger. They need somebody like different. And he was right. So he got, I don't know how he got him, but he got from Canada. He's from Canada, Sebastian Bach. And he said, now preface this, every Sunday when John was home, we would have a touch football game. John loved to play football, and we'd have a touch football game. Some of the guys from my band and some of the guys from his band and just local musicians like Cats on a Smooth Surface and stuff. We would have a pretty big size football game, maybe like, 8 guys on a team and stuff. And we would play touch. So Sebastian Bach comes flying in from Canada. He's staying at John's house. And I stayed there overnight too before the Saturday game. And so we go on the field, and Bach's on the other side, and I'm on the other side, and I'm going out for a pass. He kept holding me, like I say, dude, you can't hold. It's like maybe in Canadian football and American football that you can't hold, And I told him like 5-6 times, and then one thing he grabbed me down. I lost it. I grabbed him. I said, you can't hold it. Threw him like that.
Dude, what's your problem, dude?
He came at me with a right, and it didn't hit me. I ducked, then I grabbed him. Next thing you know, we got pulled apart. We never got along.
Wow. His brother was an NHL goalie.
Was he really?
Yeah. That's hilarious. There's some other stuff I want to ask you about post Jon Bon Jovi, but last time you talked to him was like mid-90s, right? And then all of a sudden you tried getting a hold of him, number changed. What the hell happened?
Still don't know.
Still don't know.
No. It's very bizarre. When John was going to stop communicating with someone, he would normally just change his phone number, and it happened very often. Like if somebody that he knew was being too much of a John, help me, or can you help me, or can you do this, and just got to be a pain, he would just like change his phone number, and I would always get a call from either Dorothea, him, or the office with the new number. And I think the last time I actually saw him was at Dorothea's father's funeral.
Dorothea's his wife?
Yes.
Yeah.
Girlfriend and wife all through that. Yeah. And then he got married. Yeah. And after the funeral, number got changed. I didn't think anything of it. I just figured, okay, I'll wait a couple of days. I'll get a phone call. Nothing. I call the office. They wouldn't give it to me. I lost contact with him. And I tried to get through to him through the road crews, because the road crew knew me and my brother. My brother Gary was a road guy. So we kind of knew each other through that. And I tried to get to him through that. And even to this day, I ran into David Bryan about a year ago. And I said, what happened? He goes, Wayne, I don't know. He goes, all I know is I play my gig, I check my check, and I go home. So nobody's releasing the reason. My girlfriend thinks she goes, "Did you have sex with Dorothea? Is that what it is?" I'm like, "No, I never did."
Oh, but that's a rumor you heard, right?
It was a rumor that was going around. My brother heard it through one of the road guys. That maybe John might have thought that, but that never happened. We were more like brother sister. But
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe they got in an argument. John got caught a couple of times by his wife, and it's been public, that. So maybe they got into an argument, and maybe she yelled at him something she said. I don't know.
Who knows?
To this day, I don't know.
Who the hell knows?
I don't know.
Maybe someday you'll see him again.
I'd like to
and
know
things will be
someday.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should drop a copy of the book in their mailbox.
Right. You almost became the singer of Foghat.
I did. That was fun.
1990.
1990. They broke up, and they were looking for a singer. I didn't know there was a Foghat. I was reading. I was looking for a gig, and I was reading The Village Voice again. In the back, it was a classified ad for a singer. I went up. I drove up to. It was like in New York, in the Adirondacks, in the middle of the woods. This guy comes to the door. I didn't know who he was. Older guy, older than me. He was, comes to the door, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing? I got a band. We're going to be going on a tour. We're looking to." And then it took me a while, and then he finally said who it was. I might get. Because he was like, sing the song. He's like, "Going to the city." I go, "Wait a minute." He goes, "Yeah, it's Foghat." So eventually what happened was the singer quit, and I believe the one guitar player left, and the bass player and the drummer who owned the rights to the band.
I think he still has that band going.
Yeah, so he had a tour lined up to go out with him and the bass player, and I don't know who was playing guitar, but anyway, I auditioned. I got the job. They said, "You got it." I rehearsed with them for a whole week. And then about a week later, after 2 weeks of like, I'm in Foghat. Can you believe this? This is great. They call me, mate. He goes, "Hey, Wayne, sorry, mate. We got the band back together. We're all okay. And we want to thank you for your service, but we're not going to need you."
Wow. That was Roger Earl.
Yeah.
That's the guy, the drummer.
Yep.
And that was it.
I was officially in Foghat for like 10 days.
Yeah.
So
the Frank Sinatra story, I love. It's a short story, but man, is it a good one.
It's one I'll never forget. It's, we had a management company called Premier Artist Services, and they were down in Florida. Elliot Weissman was the owner of the company, and they were in Plantation, Florida. And I had gone down. This is a whole nother story in the book. I went down to do Miami Vice episode. Okay. And
we're going to get into your acting career just in a sec. Yeah.
When I was down there, I said, let me just stop in at this management company, because they were managing us at the time. And I walk in, and they managed me and Gar. This is after Oliver's Twisted Rock Kids. This is just me and Gar. We were calling it Oliver Wilde at the time. They managed Frank Sinatra, Liza Minnelli, a little punk kid who's like 14 years old called Joey Bonamassa. You familiar with him?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. He was
the 14. Guitarist, Joey Bonamassa?
Yep. It was Joey.
Wow.
They managed Joey. They managed Frank. They managed Liza and me. That was it. That's the only 4 clients they had. And I walk in their office, and they had like this coffee room. And next to the coffee room, they had a conference room. And you could see all they had like 4 agents. They were sitting there reading a newspaper. And I'm getting a cup of coffee, and I turn to my left, and there's Mr. Sinatra right there. Little guy, young, smaller than me, old. He was old. I mean, he was like right before he passed, like a year before he died. He goes, "You're the new kid." I go, "Yes, sir." He goes, "You see what they're doing in there?" I go, "No." He goes, "They're looking at the obituaries, because if my name ain't in it, they still got jobs." And as fast as that happened, I turned to look like this at them, and I turned around, and he was gone. I didn't know whether he slipped into it. Did I actually just talk to him, or was that was a ghost? And that was it. I was like, man, that was bizarre, man. I can remember his eyes were blue, just like they said, though.
Yeah.
His eyes were like real sparkly blue. I was like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. Tell me about your acting career. I saw the Bob Dylan movie, and man, if I had interviewed you before seeing it, but I can watch it again because it's on demand now. You're in this movie on Bob Dylan.
For a second or two, yeah.
Where? What scene? What scene?
The very, very first scene, when he's coming out of the cab and he's holding his guitar and he's walking into Cafe Wah.
Yeah.
It's the very first scene of the movie. you'll see a bum walking by him with a hat and holding a liquor bottle like this. Like we just go like this. You can't miss me. Now that I said
And
that,
you
see.
are that bum.
I am that bum. Yeah. I
love
actually
it.
I was called the Tattered Man. I had a title and everything.
Oh, cool.
All right, Tattered Man, bring Tattered Man in. I'm like, here's me, So I was in a couple scenes. I was in another scene when he was getting on his motorcycle and doing that. That was a fun shoot. That was 16 hours. That was in Jersey City. They turned Jersey City into New York.
And you were part of the 16 hours? Like you had to be there and wait?
The whole time, yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did this acting career all start?
It all started down in, I did this thing, Miami Vice. It's in the book too. There was a girl who I worked with. I was bartending at the time. This was after Rock Kids, and I wasn't making enough money on music at the time. I was like, it had to be like, once again, Miami Vice, late 80s, middle 80s, something like that. Yeah, because John was famous, real famous. And the girl I worked with was a lesbian, and her girlfriend was down in Florida, and they had a long distance relationship, but she was the casting director for Miami Vice. And she loved Bon Jovi. And everybody knew me as John's best friend. It was like I was like a star. Every time I went anywhere, I got treated like I was a star because I knew John. It was like by association. So it was like, is there any way you can get her like tickets to the show? And I said, I don't know. Let me talk to John. And John said, he goes, yeah, tell her you get her backstage passes. I'll hook you up. I said, really? Yeah. He goes, yeah, tell her. He said to me, tell her you want a spot on Miami Vice. I go, all right, I'll do that. And he goes, I'll take care of you. I was like, all right. So I said, I'll get you backstage passes, but you got to give me a shot on Miami Vice. And she was done like that. She flew me down to Florida. My brother lived down there, so he didn't have to put me up in a hotel. And he drove me to the thing, and I got on the one episode. I did my thing, and she went to see John, and she went backstage, and he hooked her up. She was ecstatic. John was good like that. Like if he said he was going to do this, as long as it wasn't in Jersey when there's like 10,000 people that were asking for tickets. If it was out of state, he would I could get you hooked up pretty good with him. But that's how it started. And then I got the itch a little bit. And then years later, a friend of Vicky, my girlfriend now, she's a comedian down in Florida. HBO is doing a show called Vinyl, and it was produced by Scorsese and Mick Jagger.
I watched that. Short-lived series, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, they were supposed to go longer, but they got into a artistic difference, and they really broke up and stopped it. But anyway, so she said they're looking for like a long hair kind of guy to do a show called Vinyl. They're shooting it in New York, so she gave me this guy's name and number, and I went and I sent them a picture, and I got in. I was in a couple scenes. It was fun, and then I just joined Central Casting in New York, and also Backstage Magazine, and there's a couple other Mandy Casting, and I got my pictures done and blah blah blah, and I've been dabbling in it ever since.
That's great.
Some cool spots. I was a real good shot in The Irishman. My whole face is that's in the book too. The Scorsese. I was in a scene, 200 people, and I just happened to be standing next to the guy getting shot, from Joe Colombo getting shot. Boom boom. And when you get shot, you're supposed to, like, as a background actor, you're supposed to go like, ah, like that. So I went, ah, a couple times. He did 1, 2, 3 takes. And all of a sudden, Scorsese gets up from like 20 yards away, and he gets out of his tent because he was looking at it on video and walking towards him. I'm thinking he's going to go towards the guy who got shot, which was next to me. And he comes up right up to me. He goes, I love your enthusiasm, but your eyes are just too big. He goes, can you like maybe say fuck? Say that. Say the F word. And he goes, maybe it won't make your eyes pop so much. I'm like, yes, sir. And he walked away, and I'm going, did I just get directed by Martin Scorsese? Because he could have just said, get rid of that guy.
Yeah.
And I went home and I said to Vicky, I said, I'm going to be in this movie. You watch. So we went to the theater because it was only ran in theaters. It was a Netflix show, but it was running in theaters. We went to Staten Island to see it. And sure enough, the scene where he shot the guy, they do a close up on my face. Like the whole screen, or at least half of the screen is me going, ah.
The Booked on Rock podcast will be back after this.
Would you mind? I won't be long.
So you're doing really good these days. You got the acting thing going. You're in a band. You're still writing, recording, performing. You got a beautiful daughter, right?
Yeah.
She's
actually down in Nashville singing and writing songs now too.
Oh, she is?
So she's, oh yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
She's really good too. She's a nurse. Thank God she has a job.
And and the thing is, while you were writing this book, you're telling stories about how, you take her to school and you make her breakfast, and now here she is, all grown up, doing her thing. So
time is flying by. It's crazy.
Life is good for you, though. New Bordeaux. Okay, so I was going to say, what is Wayne Olivieri doing in 2025? So New Bordeaux. Tell us where people can find you. Website, anything you want to get out there.
Yeah, well, you go to WayneOlivieri.com. Or you can go to the New Bordeaux Facebook page. That's the best way to get us. Just go to Facebook, New Bordeaux. It's spelt like Bardots, Bardots.
Okay.
Bridget Bardot. It's an old superstar from the 60s, Bridget Bardot. But anyway, so we're working on a new album now. It's our third full-length album. We got a ton of videos. So you go to YouTube and check us out. It's a different world. We have a lot of airplay internationally, overseas and in Europe and stuff, and we get played on Sirius Satellite Radio a lot. A guy by the name of Bill Kelly at the Underground Garage with Little Steven. He supports us a lot. So we get a lot of play. The problem in today's world is nobody buys CDs, nobody downloads, and we get paid 0.008 cents per stream. So it's almost impossible to make a good living playing music unless you're out on a tour. And our guys in the band we all have mortgages to pay. One guy's a lawyer, another guy has a tree business. So we can't just hop in a van and go. We're really like a recording band is what we are. We play a couple gigs like Stone Pony. We open up for like Squeeze, or if there's a national act coming through, we can get a gig open up for them or something. But we can't go on a tour of any. We were going to go on a tour of Europe about 4 years ago. We had a whole 2.5 weeks of tour set up, including a couple of big stadium gigs with the big festivals. And then COVID hit and it just died like that. Nothing. And we haven't really been back since, but we're happy. We're recording. We're not really in it for the money. We're just in it because we got to do it because it's in our blood, and we just keep cranking out material.
Well, and you are on Spotify. I'm looking here. The New Bordeaux, Endless Drool.
That's our newest album. Yeah. That was released, I think, in August of last year.
Yeah. I was just talking, I just did an interview with Fred Mullen, who's a producer, composer. He's done a bunch of stuff. But anyway, I asked him, I said, how do record labels make money these days? And his answer was interesting. He said the record labels make plenty of money, but they rely on the older artists, the legacy artists. Yeah. And they don't even have to make product anymore. They don't have to make CDs, cassettes, vinyl albums.
Yeah, right.
The streaming services play it. They get profit off it. They don't have to pay anybody like A&R guys. They don't have to. So it's like, I never even thought about that because I thought they were struggling as well because they were doing all these cutoffs. They were.
I never thought of it either. Now that you said that, they don't really have any overhead. Yeah.
No overhead.
The only overhead is recording the actual music.
But they're not interested in looking for newer acts, developing newer acts.
The old acts. With their already recorded stuff. I feel bad for the young kids coming up the ladder. I mean, it's like back in the day when we were then, you could make money. Even not too long ago when they were downloading music, we would make 75 cents on a download.
Right.
I had 100,000 streams on our video, 100,000 streams on this song called Corporation Businessman. Now, back in the day, if that was 100,000 downloads, that would be $75,000. We made $23, something like that.
Oh, real. Well, that's what I was going to finish with. What's the biggest lesson you want to relate to a young musician who's listening to this interview right now?
Well, you got to want it to the point where you don't care. I mean, and remember one thing, it's the music business. Don't forget that it's the business, and try not to party too much. That's the hardest thing to do is when you're starting to go play, especially when you're young and you got all the girls flying at you and you got this and you got that and there's drugs and I sound like a father, but you really got to focus on your music and then you got to focus on your business. And I would say the best thing to do is once you got your music down, look around for a legitimate manager and let them help you along the way. That would be my advice.
Just do what you love to do. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I have no regrets. We do it because we love it now. I mean, we didn't grab the golden ring, but you never know. We got more music out there.
Sure.
It only takes one song, even in today's world. You could still dream of just that one song making it happen, and it can happen. Not as easy as it used to happen, but it can still happen.
And I was going to mention there's a story with Johnny Depp. he wanted to be a musician. He is. But in 1984, his buddy went to audition for Nightmare on Elm Street. And Wes Craven's daughter, I think, was the one who said, "Oh, he's cute. You should put him into the movie." They asked Johnny, like, "Do you want to audition for this? Or do you want to?" He's like, "Well, I guess." Like, he was in the waiting room just waiting for his friend to audition. Then his career takes off. So you just don't know. Things can happen.
You never know.
You never know.
The universe works in mysterious ways, Eric.
It does. It does. So The Undiscovered Showman, A True Story of Being Almost Famous, is out now. You can find it wherever you get books, Amazon, all the usual places. If you got a bookstore nearby, get a copy there. If they don't have a copy, ask them to get a copy. Bookedonrock.com, you can search for your nearest independent bookstore. And you did mention where people could find you online, so they could reach out to you on Facebook or go to the website, the New Bardos.
New Bardos, or the New Bardos Facebook page, or I have a fan page called Wayne Olivieri on Facebook. Wayne Olivieri on Facebook, and you could reach me there. You could DM me if you want. The New Bardos, go on to YouTube and check us out. We got tons of video material out there you might enjoy.
It's good stuff. I've seen it myself. I was listening to the tunes, watching some of the live performances. So check out the New Bardos and go see them live. Check out all the upcoming dates on the website. All right, Wayne, thanks so much, man.
Eric, this has been fun. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That's it. It's in the books.